Today we are going to look at common problems for the second generation Chevy Tahoe.
Those are the golden years. People love those engines, no active fuel management. They just seemingly go forever. You might have to throw a transmission in at 180,000 miles, but then you're good for another 180, you know?
So this is going to be from years 2000 to 2006. This video includes technical service bulletins and recall information that is all available for public viewing on NHTSA.com. Documents are not intended for do-it-yourselfers, but they're supposed to be used by professional mechanics who have the right equipment, tools, and training. Just because you see a situation that is described here does not necessarily mean that it applies to you. So see your local dealer for more information about these problems. Common problem number one is an instrument cluster gauge failure. Says it affects years 2003 to 2004, but I have seen this affect a lot of other years and models. Dane, do you agree?
Yeah, I've seen this.
You're going to see the gauges acting all crazy, going wild.
The dimmer light is the one that I probably see the most, where the dim doesn't work, or it'll like get really bright and flash dim, get bright, flash dim. It won't stay consistent.
Oh, okay. So the remedy, the dealers were instructed to replace the instrument panel cluster, but we're going to look at some other options. One other note, I have seen this issue cause a battery drain. My friend, he had a Tahoe he wanted me to look at, and he said the battery's draining, I went and found the source of the drain, and it looked like it was the cluster, because those were the fuses that I found that were draining. So, and they were both had to do with the cluster. So we didn't have a cluster to replace right then. So he wanted to make sure I was right. And his battery was draining like every day. Every day he would come back, he'd have to jump it. So he unplugged the cluster, and then he said, let's see if old MJ was right. And it didn't drain anymore. So he went and ordered him a cluster. He put it in and stopped draining. So that's a cheap way you could use to try to figure out. There's lots of other ways to figure out parasitic current draws. If you want to try to fix that, I found a video from Royalty Auto Service where he actually opens one up and replaces these white little circle things. These are the stepper motors, and he replaces the bulbs too. But the thing is, I wouldn't recommend you do that if you've never done this before, because the tools, as I'm showing you in the second slide here, are kind of expensive. You have to get a tool that desolders, and then you have to resolder. You desolder it, you pull it out, then you put in a new one, and then you resolder it. And there's a little bit much to spend $240 when you could just spend about, in the next slide, you're seeing about $175 to rebuild them. These are a couple websites or companies that do that. They're not sponsoring us, but you can use any company you want. I'm saying it'd probably be easier to just send it out, let them replace all these stepper motors, and then put it back together. And one other thing, I would recommend using the factory bulbs. I heard that sometimes they like to put in LED bulbs and it looks a little cooler, but I saw somebody in the comments that said that caused the parasitic draw on its own. So just put everything stock back together. That's my advice. Dane, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, especially the LEDs. They don't draw as much current as the normal incandescent bulbs, and that can cause some issues with transistors and stuff that makes them switch off and on. And then, yeah, you're right too on, for as little as it costs to have these things sent out and replaced, yeah, you can save yourself $175 by doing it yourself if you do it well. These printed circuit boards can be very brittle, and you can cause more damage than what was originally there by, improper techniques. It's a tricky job. It's, eye surgery on an infant. You got to be very careful with some of these old electronics and printed circuit boards. So it's a good piece of insurance to send it off to someone else, because if you get it back and it still doesn't work, well, now they're on the hook to get it right.
Yep.
And you're not left holding the bag. So it's, for as little as it costs, it's better to send it out.
Yes, exactly. So let's move on to the next issue. HVAC blower resistor and connectors. There is a TSB related to this. This one says it's 2003 to 2006 Tahoe, but I have seen this issue on a lot of different older GM cars. The blower motor resistor module can overheat or corrode, and then you might have, it might not work, or it might work only in one speed, or you might have a burning smell. So you're going to have to replace the blower motor resistor. And I would recommend going ahead and replacing the blower motor resistor and the blower. They're kind of like a tag team. Dane, did you want to say something?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's so easy to do too. Don't be overwhelmed by this. This is a very easy fix, and pretty much every vehicle in this year range is going to be affected by this eventually.
So I found a couple videos. I'll put the links in the description. One of them is to Lonnie Johnson 1, who shows you how to do this without having to splice anything. So it looks like he's going to do a little depin and repin action.
That works too. Have you talked to? Are you going to mention the common or how you would notify this? What would be like a common fault?
Well, yeah, it's like it would only work in one speed or no speeds or.
That's what I've noticed is usually the lower numbers. You'll have like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like you'll start losing like 1, then you'll lose 2, and then like only high works like number 4.
Watch out for that. You may be able to fix that one on your own. That one's not too hard.
That one's real easy. Anybody should be able to do that one.
But if you can't do it, take it on down to your Chevy dealer. Let them do it. All right. Next problem is for the ABS pump will run continuously. I've seen some other semi-related problems with the ABS light coming on. They're saying owners report the ABS pump motor continuing to run loudly or consistently. This is often a problem with the electronic brake control module's internal relay or driver failure. Some people have reported that just cleaning off one of the grounds near the brake control module will help. So you could try that. I'm showing that it's underneath of the vehicle, and people are saying if you want to get that module off, don't open the brake lines. You can just unbolt the module from the top. It's a little tricky. So I put a video in the description by Quick and Easy 5-minute appliance. So that guy, he got under there and got that module off, and he took the module apart and cleaned it up and put it back together, and it worked. So yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. But Dane, what would you do?
That's usually what the issue is that I've seen in the past. I've heard of the run-on issue where it kind of stays on. The issue that I've normally see is the brake light is on in the dash, and you don't have, or not the brake light, the ABS light is on in the dash, and you just don't have ABS anymore. And then sometimes it'll go off and it'll work again, and then sometimes it comes back on. And what happens is that solder on that printed circuit board inside of that module starts to crack over time with just from vibration running down the road and whatever. And so you get a loose connection inside of there. And usually you just have to resolder that pin. This kind of goes back to the dash thing too. You know, if you're not real confident and real careful, you can cause more damage than help. But if you're pretty confident, this one is less invasive than the dash one. It's more or less just adding more solder to the pins in those cracked locations. But it can be a bear to get out because it's like the frame rail, the body, and the module is like right in between. You've got very little room to work in there.
If it were me, I'd just send it out and let somebody else do it.
There you go.
Let somebody else rebuild it.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another common problem: the rear liftgate glass hinge separation. Okay, so there's no specific recall or TSB, but we found this problem reported all over the internet, specifically in the Tahoe Yukon forum. This is for the 2002-2006 Tahoe, Yukon, or Escalade. The rear glass, some owners noticed that the hinge will disconnect. It's glued together, but well, it's not glue, but there's a special adhesive. I found a video from Amateur Homestead where he fixes this. He takes it apart and he puts it back together with JB Weld, which I probably wouldn't use. I would use, somebody in the comments said they used a GM factory glue. So I would recommend using that or something that they recommend at the dealership that is made to adhere metal to glass.
Yeah, 3M makes panel bonder too that works really well. It's kind of expensive, but you get what you pay for in this case.
Then I saw somebody else in the comments recommended lubricating the pins and hinges prior to reinstallation.
That's good.
So they might be a little corroded. One other tip: if you got one side that's coming off, just replace both sides because the other one probably going to break soon anyway.
Yeah. Don't be cheap on this one.
Yeah, just do both sides while you got it apart, and then you'll be all right. One other problem: the transmission slipping. That's the 4L60E. Loss of gear engagement. So there's no specific TSB or recall notice for this one, People have reported slipping, over revving, delayed engagement, or symptoms like no third gear. All right, so this one is
4
probably
neutrals.
just I got 4 neutrals. So this one I just think is just from age. I mean, these vehicles are about over 20 years old now. So
Mhm.
transmissions, they get old. The good thing about this transmission is it looks like it's pretty simple to rebuild. So if you have to have somebody rebuild it, it can be done. If it's a transmission shop, I'm sure they've done it before because GM sells the most vehicles in the US. Yeah, they'll be familiar with it. Shouldn't be too big of a deal for them to rebuild it. A lot of newer transmissions can't even be rebuilt.
Yeah, these 4L60s are pretty notorious throughout their whole lifespan of once they get later in their life of, having this problem. So they start to slip and whatnot, especially when they're under high loads a lot. So if you're towing a lot with a 4L60, that'll cause them to wear faster. Temperature is the big thing that wears them out. Here's a hot tip on how to make them last a little longer. If yours is still good or has lower miles, the Corvettes used a very similar version of this transmission. That servo on the Corvette transmission is a direct fit into these. So those Corvette servos will apply a little more pressure and give you a little bit firmer shift. And you can buy those on eBay for like $150, the whole thing. The servo is really easy to pop out, pop back on. Go ahead and do that before you have a problem. It'll make your transmission last longer.
Really?
Yeah.
Dane got all the secret information.
Yeah. I've had a lot of vehicles in this year range, not because
All
they're all
right.
junk. I just like a lot of these things. So,
All right, cool.
but yeah, that was something I started doing a long time ago. And I think I've only replaced one 4L60 transmission in anything I've had from 90 when they started using these, or 91 when they started putting these in vehicles, all the way into, you know, 2013. And they
Okay.
worked. Yeah, as long as you throw that servo in there, they worked really well. I've only had one that failed, and it was before I had a chance to even put a servo in. I bought it with a bad transmission, really. I knew that it was
Okay.
going out and just kept driving it, knowing it was going out. And then once it went, replaced it. And of course, once I replaced it, I put the servo in there too.
Let's look at what you could do if you're looking to buy one of these used. Let's see. Here are some tips. When you're buying used, and this for any car, but especially, or any vehicle, but especially for this one,
Mhm.
don't tell them you're coming to look at the vehicle because sometimes they'll want to start it, let it warm up, and then you go drive it, and then you miss the problem. Sometimes problems only happen when it's cold. So don't tell them you're coming to look at it at the car lot. Just sneak attack them, drive it
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah. If you're going to an individual, it's harder to do this. So before you drive, pop the hood, feel the exhaust. Make sure the engine's actually cold and hasn't been started recently.
Yeah, that's good tip. Good tip, Dane.
Mhm.
So yeah, test drive it cold. Nice long test drive. Don't make them rush you and just drive it around the block.
Mhm.
Drive it on the highway. Take it on a nice long trip. Maybe go pick up your dry cleaning,
Mhm.
and then even if it drives okay, I'd still have a mechanic check it out before you buy it because they could also look for codes and they can check the condition of the fluid, see if it smells weird or whatever. I mean, even if it's only $3,000-$4,000, that's a lot of money where I come from.
Yeah.
Make
You should
sure to get it checked out.
definitely. Yeah. You should drive it, any vehicle you're test driving, at least 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Get all the fluids up to temperature, run it through its paces, drive it through town, drive it on the highway, drive it in every normal condition you would. Turn it off and on a few times, like pull into a parking lot, turn it off, turn it back on, take off, go through all the paces.
All right. Well, that's what we got for that video. If you have any common problems that you know about, please let the world know about them in the comments because common problems have common solutions. Thank you for tuning in and have a good one.
See you guys next time.